What's up, Flying? It is time for Sunday Night Football. We've got the Lions at the Eagles as usual. I'm going to break this slate down for DraftKings Showdown. Maybe we'll take a look at FanDuel as well if people ask. We'll go position by position, starting with quarterbacks, then running backs, receivers, tight ends, defenses, kickers. In the end, I will run the Sims a few times, making my lineups as we go. While you're coming in, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Really would appreciate it. Trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the NFL season. Fun main slate today. I am not going to make money on the main slate. Didn't really go how I hoped it would, but a lot of points scored in it. Now I'm questioning myself. Was it a fun main slate? I think it was. I think it was. It's kind of cool to see Kenneth Gainwell putting a couple touchdowns. Sean Tucker 3 touchdowns today. So fun in some ways. Hopefully, some of you made some money on the main slate or the morning slate. But hopefully, we can make money on this slate as well. We will again be starting with quarterbacks. Yeah, that was absolutely brutal. The Vikings game, they come all the way back, and then the Bears just return a kick to basically field goal range. That was very not fun as a Vikings fan. With how bad JJ McCarthy looked, like getting a win out of that would have been so huge. Anyway, we're going to break down this game. So we've Jalen Hurts and we've got Jared Goff at quarterback. First, looking at schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position. I'm just going to read this rather than looking it up on my on the sheet. Because I've already written an article about this slate. Jalen Hurts leads an Eagles offense ranked 20th in pass rate over expectation. Not as meaningful when you're talking about a quarterback who runs the ball quite a bit himself. Facing the Lions defense has allowed the 11th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game over the last 5 weeks to quarterback. So a pretty nice matchup here for Jalen Hurts. The Lions allow more than average, both on the ground and through the air, to the quarterback position over the past 5 weeks. Hurts is 10,400 projected for 54% captain ownership. Sorry, 54% flex ownership, 24% captain ownership. In my first run of the Sims, which again, I don't adjust anything. I just want to see what I would get naturally. I got to 57% in the flex, 12% at captain. So slightly over the field in the flex, slightly under the field, actually half the field at captain in my first run of the Sims for Jalen Hurts. I think that makes sense. I like Jalen Hurts quite a bit. I also think you can play Jalen Hurts however you want. You can play him without any pass catchers, which I would say about a lot of quarterbacks, but he runs enough, scores enough rushing touchdowns that I think you can play Jalen Hurts without any pass catchers, even at the captain spot. But I also like the idea of going the other way and playing Jalen Hurts at captain with multiple pass catchers, because I think that is going to be underrepresented by the field. Jalen Hurts with like playing all of AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert, or swap one of them for Jahan Dotson or something. I think that will go a bit underrepresented by the field. So I actually think that is kind of an intriguing idea with Jalen Hurts at captain. Ultimately, I think this is just fine, kind of about where I'd like to be. 24% captain ownership does seem like a bit much. You're kind of relying on a lot of touchdown scoring, most likely to get Jalen Hurts there, because he's not likely to hit like the 300-yard bonus or the 100-yard rushing bonus. So you kind of need to get there via touchdowns with Jalen Hurts. On the other side, you've got Jared Goff is 10,000 projected for 37% flex ownership, 3% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I'm getting to 30% in the flex, 3% of captain. So slightly under the field on Goff as well. I think that's fine. He's not somebody that I'm going out of my way to prioritize over all the other pay up options. This is a slate where we have a ton of options to pay up for, both the quarterbacks, obviously, running backs on both sides, Saquon Barkley and Jahmyr Gibbs. And then we also have wide receivers on both sides that look like great plays with AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then we've got mid-range. So it's kind of like across the salaries. We have a number of options with sort of the exception of like extreme value. We don't have a ton of great $200 options, but I think that there's at least one viable option that we'll get to at the minimum salary. There's probably more than that, but at the top, there's just so many of these top options that it's like, yeah, if I'm not getting to where the field is at on Goff, I think I'm okay with that, because there are some other plays that I want to make sure I'm prioritizing here. When I play Goff, I always want him to be stacked up with at least one pass catcher. You can include, I think, either of the running backs in that equation. And when I have him at captain, I want him to be stacked up with at least 2 pass catchers. Oh, and reading off the same notes on Goff, Lions offense ranks 26th in pass rate over expectation. I was kind of surprised by that, how low they rank in pass rate over expectation, but they're just establishing it. They have two running backs that they like quite a bit, so they like to run the ball. Eagles defense has allowed the 13th fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to quarterbacks over the past 5 weeks. So a slightly negative matchup for Jared Goff, not enough to scare me off it. Um, all right. Dan says not a fan of these stud heavy showdowns. I like it better when I have a real stance on like who I like, and I kind of do tonight. There is a player that we'll get to that I like the best of the studs. That doesn't mean that I'm super confident that he's going to be the best stud, but at least like I've got a theory in my mind, or I'm working something that I really like of the payoffs, which makes me like it better. A lot of the times, just like that, yeah, I can't break any ties to any of the studs, and it's just kind of like who's going to score the touchdown, who's going to break off the big play. So this one I like better than some. And then we also have some value with, I didn't say it at the top, but Sam Laporta is on IR, so we're going to get some value on the Lions side, and some of the Lions players just going to get more volume with Sam Laporta out. So it's kind of an interesting game for one that does have so many studs like this. All right, let's move on to running backs. Hang on. There we go. Do we know if Brock Wright is active and healthy? He is active. Yeah, I'm not concerned about Brock Wright. Maybe I missed something. What was he questionable at some point? I guess I didn't see a Q tag on him at any point, but I know that he was not on the inactives list, so I don't think we have anything to worry about there. All right. Running backs. We'll start with the Detroit side. Jahmyr Gibbs is 10,600, projected for 25% flex ownership, 10% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I got to 53% flex, 16% captain. So way over the field on Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that's going to come down to just the strong workload for Jahmyr Gibbs. If we look at the season breakdown for Gibbs versus Montgomery, Gibbs has 128 carries on the season, plus 35 targets in 9 games. So pretty strong numbers there. Also, just about 4 targets per game for Gibbs, and then he also running 48% of the route. So involved in the passing game, gets a lot of carries. What's not to love about Gibbs? And then you also have David Montgomery is, I believe, 5,200. Yeah, 5,200 projected for 38% flex and 5% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I also got to 41% flex and 4% captain. So just under the field of captain, just over the field in the flex for David Montgomery. So getting to a ton of the Lions running backs. I also want to look at, I actually did not break it down on these Sunday slates. I don't always break everything down. Oh, here we can look. Actually, I do have this pulled up. Just want to see if there's been any kind of trend in week 10, our most recent game. They split carries 15-15. Montgomery actually outsnapped Gibbs. Gibbs did see 4 targets to Montgomery's 1, but Montgomery actually ran more routes. So a lot to love about Montgomery. Also, there was some thought that maybe Gibbs is going to take on more of a role, but yeah, this is kind of my memory. Looks like Montgomery is still here to stay. So yeah, getting to a ton of both. I suspect I will reduce some of this exposure as I get to other plays that I like, but I'm not intentionally, not because I want to get away from Gibbs and Barkley, just because there's other angles that I'm planning to play on this slate. In terms of the matchups, and let me read my notes on this one again. Jahmyr Gibbs facing Eagles defense, or both Detroit running backs facing Eagles defense that allowed the 14th fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to running backs over the past 5 weeks. So just slightly below average, basically a neutral matchup for the Detroit running backs. And obviously they can put up a lot of points on anybody. So not super concerned about the matchup for Gibbs and Montgomery. Both look like strong plays. They are not my absolute favorite plays, but yeah, if you tell me that, Gibbs ends up as the highest scoring player on the slate, not going to shock me. If you tell me that Montgomery puts up 18 is in the winning lineup, that's obviously not going to shock anybody either. Both look like pretty strong plays here. And you can absolutely play them in a lineup together before anybody asks. Yeah, you can play Gibbs and Montgomery. I mean, you can assume based on my exposures here that in the sims that I ran without changing anything, I got to lineups with both Gibbs and Montgomery. Montgomery just a really strong value at 5,200 on a slate that doesn't have a ton of value, and Gibbs likely as anybody to put up the slate winning score. Philadelphia also pretty interesting because you have Saquon Barkley is 9,600 projected for 35% flex and 11% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I got to 42% in the flex, so a bit overweight there. 9.5% captain, slightly underweight on Barkley. Not too far off from the field overall in my exposure to Barkley. Looking at the bell cow report for the season, Barkley has 149 carries in 9 games. So again, that's more than either of Gibbs or Barkley. I believe Gibbs was in like the 120 something range. Actually, let me just pull that right back up. Yeah, Gibbs 128 carries on the season. Barkley 149. So kind of a big difference there. Barkley also does have 31 targets in 9 games, so less than Gibbs. 46.4% route participation. Actually, not that far off in terms of the usage in the passing game for Saquon Barkley. As far as the matchup, Lions defense has allowed the fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to running backs over the past 5 weeks. So it is not the best matchup, a fairly negative matchup there for Barkley. Beyond and Barkley obviously look like a strong play. Again, not my biggest priority, but not somebody that I'm like intentionally going to get away from. I suspect as we look at other positions and I find angles that I'm playing, I might end up having to be underweight on the running backs. We'll see when we get there. Beyond Barkley, I do have quite a bit of interest in the backup running backs, particularly Will Shipley. I kind of always do. If you've watched these shows, you know that I love playing the backup running back angle when they are running backs that have some standalone value. And then backup running backs almost inherently have contingent upside. If anything were to happen to Saquon Barkley, we would likely see one of Will Shipley or Tank Bigsby, or both Will Shipley and Tank Bigsby suddenly take on much bigger roles, and suddenly their price tags would just be way too low, depending on when it happens in the game. If Barkley gets hurt in the first quarter, like, you would want all of the Bigsby and Shipley. You would regret any lineups that don't have them. So I love the contingent upside for backup running backs who are inexpensive and have standalone roles. So you don't really need anything to happen for one of these guys to, pop off and have a big game at these salaries. Now, how do we break it down? Bigsby and Shipley, it is sort of tough. So first of all, Bigsby, 2,600 projected for 1% flex ownership, 0% captain ownership. Shipley, 2,000 projected for 3% flex, 0% captain. I didn't get to any Shipley using those numbers. I got to 2% Bigsby in the flex. So I'm going to have to make adjustments to get to Bigsby and Shipley. But let's take a look at the bell cow report. So for the full season, Shipley, and this is actually going to include every game for Bigsby when he was on Jacksonville as well. But maybe I'll bring this up to maybe just the last 3 games or 4 games. Let's see. So they had a bye in week 9. I don't remember exactly when the trade happened. I'll pull up the last 4 games. Yeah, okay. Bigsby was on for all 4 of those games. AJ Dillon, by the way, is inactive, so you cannot play AJ Dillon. Don't need to worry about him taking any work away from Bigsby or Shipley. Over the past 4 games with Bigsby on the team, we have Bigsby has 13 carries to Shipley's 7. Bigsby has 1 target on 4.2% route participation. Shipley 3 targets on 12% route participation. I do think it's always notable to look at what happens post bye. So they had their bye in week 9. In week 10, it was Will Shipley played 20% of snaps to Bigsby's 12. So Shipley outsnapped Bigsby, also had 4 carries to Bigsby's 3, and saw 2 targets on 21% route participation compared to Bigsby getting 0 targets on 7% route participation. So in every metric after the bye week, Shipley was more involved than Bigsby. It kind of surprised me. I think it surprised everybody because it had appeared that Bigsby in the game prior, when Saquon got hurt, was looking good. He looked like he was ready to take over. But with Saquon back, it was actually Shipley getting more work than Bigsby. So I have a slight preference for Shipley. I also just think that he is, because he's more involved in the passing game. I like his standalone role better than Bigsby's. Just more likely to have a couple catches. He is also cheaper than Bigsby. So because he's cheaper and involved in the pass game, and also capable of, going for a long play. I think that Shipley is my preference of the two of them, but I would want to be above weight on both Shipley and Bigsby. I think that is an approach that I'm going to take on a slate where we don't have a ton of really great value. I think both of them are viable and could become awesome. Obviously, we're not hoping for an injury to Saquon Barkley, but also can have continued upside in like a blowout. The backup running backs often look really good also. So we've got multiple paths for both to get there. And you can absolutely play at least two running backs from the Eagles in the same lineup. I'm not sure that I would play three. I wouldn't I probably hand building. I'm not going to play three in the same lineup, but I absolutely think you can play two in the same lineup together. All right, I'm going to move on to wide receivers and also check in on chat. All right, let's see. Tank the Shy Guy. What's going on? Is Wright in? Yep, Wright is in. Like Shipley, he seemed to be more involved last game. Yep, exactly. Yep, I'm seeing some talk of receivers that I agree with, and we're just about to get there. Sean, yes, got second Minimax. Please do hit the like button. That's a good reminder from Sean and Dan. Always appreciate it if you guys would hit the like button on the video. Helps me out quite a bit. All right, let me see. Let me read. Aaron's says the problem with Philly backup running backs is the pipped touchdown loss risk. Could be Hurts and Tushbush. Could be Goddard in a niche goal line play. Could be Barkley on a longish run. Yeah, I mean, there's like the likeliest scenario is that neither of them puts up more than 3 fantasy points. To be clear, like that is the likeliest scenario. But I think that there's enough of a scenario where one of them puts up 6 fantasy points without anything going weird, without any kind of injury or blowout run. Just like it's not that unlikely that one of them happens to score a touchdown or has 2 catches for 30 yards and another 10 yards rushing or something like that. So like there's a big chunk of possibility for one of them to get 6 fantasy points where you might want them at their price tags. But then there's also some possibility that's slim, but it's there, that something happens to Saquon Barkley or a blowout happens and they actually have like awesome rolls and put up 15 fantasy points and you need them in your lineup. So it's not the likeliest scenario that either of them is going to put up a big game. Neither is going to project well. But this is because I'm playing the largest field contests. I like them as their big play opportunities. Like they can really separate from the field. Okay. Let's move on to wide receivers. I was asked for my opinion on Darius Cooper. I have not formed an opinion on Darius Cooper, so maybe we'll have to look at his usage in recent weeks. I believe that he was not super involved. Or was it? I forget if it was him or Gibson that I played. We just had an Eagles Showdown slate, and I forget which of them I liked better for that slate. But we'll start at the top. We will start with the Detroit receivers, and I thought that maybe Isaac Tesla was not going to play this game, but Isaac Tesla is active. And we could see an increased role there. But so we have 4 receivers from Detroit that we're considering playing here. No Tom Kennedy for Detroit on this slate. So he was another one that we might have considered, but we don't need to now. But it's going to start with Amon-Ra St. Brown is 10,800, projected for 40% flex ownership, 19% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I got to 35% flex and 24% captain. So I'm a bit underweight in the flex, a bit overweight at captain. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that he's probably one of my top captain options. So yeah, I'm happy to get to 60% ish. I think that seems totally reasonable. He's not my biggest priority. I'll just say it. AJ Brown is going to be my biggest priority, which is not what the Sims are giving me at all. But I'll say that we'll get there in a minute. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think looks fine. I probably lose some of this exposure as I try to get to more of Amon-Ra St. Brown, or sorry, AJ Brown. I'll probably lose some of my Amon-Ra. In terms of the matchup for receivers, let me read it off. Eagles defense allowed the 12th most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to wide receivers over the past 5 weeks. So it's been a nice matchup for receivers. It has, I believe, been a little bit tougher on slot receivers, which Amon-Ra does run a fair amount from the slot. He does have 80 targets across 9 games, fairly involved, 87% route participation for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Looking at the wide receiver coverage matrix, it is a positive coverage matchup for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So everything looks pretty good here. I have definite interest. I'm going to have a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Doesn't really separate for me from like Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley. I think that he probably is. I think I ranked him as either my favorite or my second favorite captain play. Like I think he separates. Like I rank him ahead of the running backs, but it's not by any kind of real margin. You also have Jameson Williams, who is, I think, a really intriguing contrarian play at captain. Now, you can see Run the Sims projecting JMO for a fair amount of flex ownership, 30% flex, 4% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I got to 16% flex, 2% captain. I think he was lower elsewhere. Let me see what and maybe I'm totally wrong about this. I might be misremembering. But the 4% captain ownership, I do like quite a bit for JMO. Because again, we don't have Sam Laporta, so it's not like, maybe not a direct impact on JMO, but at least indirectly, they're just going to consolidate their targets more. So with Sam Laporta, my expectation is that they continue to use JMO more. Okay, he's projected for 25% flex at RG. And at captain 4%. So just a little bit lower ownership overall on JMO there. But we've seen he's had a fairly strong role the past 2 weeks. JMO, now let me just pull that up. So since their week 8 bye and their offensive coordinator coming out and saying like I really need to get JMO involved. I failed him. And then last game, the offensive coordinator lost his play calling duties. Dan Campbell took over as the play caller for the Lions, and we saw, I think, the best game of JMO's career, most likely. Over the past 2 weeks, 13 targets for JMO on 83% route participation. In that same span, you can see here, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 20 targets on 78%, so 10 targets per game, 6.5 for JMO. But again, we're losing Sam Laporta, who's been targeted 13 times. You can't replace Sam Laporta with Brock Wright. Those targets are just going to consolidate more to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, most likely, and maybe Montgomery also. But like a lot of those targets are going to be going to the other Lions pass catchers. So JMO to me looks like a really strong play, and particularly a strong captain play at 4%. And I'm usually one who cautions against like how much people love JMO, because people love the splash plays, and I always try to differentiate between splash plays and spike weeks, because he can put up a 60-yard touchdown and still not actually put up 20 fantasy points. But we started to see some of those actual spike weeks for JMO, and I think with Dan Campbell calling the plays, I think it's maybe more likely that we're going to continue to see big weeks and not just big plays for JMO. So at his price tag and ownership, I think JMO is actually a really strong contrarian captain option, somebody I'd like to get to more than I'm getting to right now, and more than the 4% the field is projected for. Beyond Amon-Ra St. Brown and JMO, we've got Isaac TeSlaa and Khalif Raymond. TeSlaa is 1,000. Raymond is 3,000. Now, again, I think mostly the targets are probably going to consolidate around the stars, but it's also possible that some of Sam Laporta's targets will go, to TeSlaa. Maybe he picks up an extra one. Maybe Khalif Raymond picks up an extra target. Looking at the route participation by week, Khalif Raymond has seen pretty strong route participation weeks 7, 9, and 10, the past 3 games. He has been leading TeSlaa pretty significantly in terms of route participation. Isaac TeSlaa was questionable coming into today. I don't see any reason that they would, give TeSlaa the role that they've been giving Raymond. My expectation would be that Khalif Raymond continues to be the wide receiver 3 on the Lions. and he's not projected for a ton of. Okay, actually, here he is. He's projected for 24% flex ownership. I believe that is fairly different from what I've seen elsewhere. Yeah, RG has him at 11%. So much lower ownership going to Raymond there. I like him quite a bit at 11% ownership. At 24% becomes a bit thinner. But looking at the usage in recent weeks for Khalif Raymond, um, just the past couple, 5 targets on 47% route participation. That's 2.5 targets per game. And again, you might expect an uptick up to 3 or 4 targets per game for Khalif Raymond with Sam Laporta out, and maybe some spikes to 5 or 6. You never know. But I think Raymond looks like a fairly strong play at 3,000. And then you have Isaac Tesla, who over the past 2 games has just 1 target on 13% route participation. Um, he's a big play guy. We haven't really seen it in a while from Isaac Tesla. Early on, he was making some highlight plays. I think at 1,000, he's fine, but he's kind of just the backup, like a backup tight end, where it's just like you're kind of hoping for that one big play. He doesn't have any kind of great involvement. Maybe he sees an uptick without Sam Laporta there. I think he's a strong play at 1,000 and 10% ownership. I do want to be above weight on Tesla. I think because I think he's like the high end version of a backup tight end, where it's maybe more like a Noah Gray, where it's more likely to hit, and he's only 1,000 on a team that should score some points, but not super likely to hit. I also do like, if we flip the ownership a bit, bring down Khalif Raymond's ownership, I think we're going to get to a lot more there. And again, it's only 11% at RG, which I like a lot better. And I think that he probably does not get anywhere close to 24%. That would kind of surprise me for Khalif Raymond. On the other side, I've already mentioned it. AJ Brown, absolutely love it. At 8,000, AJ Brown projected here for 39% flex and 11% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I only got to 21% and 4%. I'm going to IKB it and get to a lot. You can tail me if you want to. No worries if you don't want to tail me on AJ Brown. He, I believe, said this week that if you have him on your fantasy team, you should drop him. He has been very much the squeaky wheel, just down in the pits, sad about how his role has gone with the Eagles. I'm not concerned about it. I think that if anything, he is the squeaky wheel who is going to get the grease here. But that's not really the reason that I love AJ Brown here. It is the matchup with the Lions, who play the second most man coverage in the NFL this season. And AJ Brown, I mean, just this season, you can see plus 31% coverage grade. Actually, let's look at all. Where does he rank among all receivers? 5th among all receivers on the week in terms of the coverage grade. And that's been throughout his whole career. He just crushes against man coverage. And again, the Lions play it at the second highest rate in the league. So my expectation is that AJ Brown is going to feast on this defense. We're not projecting any kind of decreased ownership on AJ Brown after his recent weeks, kind of not looking that great, not putting up big fantasy scores. But he's only $8,000 somehow. That is that's way too low for AJ Brown. And I think that this is a game that he could put up 120 touchdowns. No, not 120 touchdowns. I don't think 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that this is one where could just have a big bounce back game for AJ Brown. As a result, I'm not going to like Devontae Smith quite as much. He is a bit more expensive, 8,400, 37% projected flex ownership, 6% captain ownership. I got to more there, 35% flex, 18% captain. Again, I think I'm going to IKB it onto a lot more AJ Brown. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? IKBing onto AJ Brown while he's whining and playing while playing video games with friends. Jahan Dotson. I never want to play Jahan Dotson. I probably will anyway. He's 2,400, projected for 11% flex ownership. With those, I'm getting to 23% flex, 1% captain. I'm going to IKB off of some of that. He should hit at some point, but so far he kind of only hits when AJ Brown is out, and AJ Brown is not out for this game. Let's just look at. I'm going to bring up fantasy points scored for the Eagles. I swear, he last year, literally the only game he hit was week 18 when both AJ Brown and not quarterback and Devontae Smith were out. And this year, Let's see. Still, like it's a relatively small sample size. Yeah, in week 8 with AJ Brown out, he put up 11. In week 1, I don't know if did AJ Brown maybe get hurt in this game. AJ Brown only put up 1.8 fantasy points, and Dotson put up 8.9. But in between all that, it's a bunch of zeros. I usually love the guys who run all the routes. Because you'd expect that there's going to be regression at some point. I'm not sure that I expect regression for Jahan Dotson. If you were 3% owned, I would be like, all right, I want to be triple that. But at 11% owned, I don't really need to be above weight on Jahan Dotson. I think that there are other plays that I like a little bit better. And then beyond, again, I probably will get to double digits, so I might be with the field. But there are other plays that I prefer, I think. And then beyond those three, you've got Darius Cooper and Xavier Gipson. Now let's take a look. This is just the route shares. Yeah, Gibson was up, ran 7.4% of routes in week 8, back down to 0 in week 10. Darius Cooper ran 33.3% in week 8, up to 14% of routes in week 10. I don't know. Do I have a good? I don't think I have a good read. I think Darius Cooper seems like he is the one who would be more likely, if anything were to happen in game, to AJ Brown or Jahan Dotson. It seems like he would be the next one most likely to have a role, just given that he did run 33% of routes with AJ Brown in week 8. Let's see if we go to receiving. Let's look at this. Can we get anything from the types of routes they're running? Darius Cooper, yeah, 50% out wide, 50% slot. So who knows? Like if you would be just as likely to take over if it was Devontae Smith who got hurt or Jahan Dotson. I guess 50-50 probably means that he could take over for anybody. But I don't know if that's why he ran more routes, because it was AJ Brown specifically, as opposed to Devontae Smith, who runs 39% from the slot. I'm not going to claim to have a really strong lean here, but I think it kind of regardless. Like he's the wide receiver 4 here. He's 200. Like you can play him, but you're just hoping for one catch, and then you're hoping that one catch is a touchdown. One catch might just be enough because he's 200. But obviously, if he scores a touchdown, then he probably is somebody that there's a decent chance that he's somebody you're going to need if he scores a touchdown, not necessarily. So I think Cooper is fine at 3% ownership. I think he is the better play than Xavier Gipson, but Gipson is 0.5% projected ownership. I didn't get to any in the Sims using those numbers. I don't have any particularly strong take on either of them, other than they're probably not going to see a target in the game. And if they do, then yeah, you just hope to catch it. They're both kind of long shot plays, not getting much ownership. Even the Sims don't love them. Although I did get to 2% Cooper, that seems fine. Getting 2, 3, 4% seems good. And if I got to 1 or 2 of Gibson, I'd be okay with that, but I'm not prioritizing it. Let's move on to tight ends. And I will check in on chat before I look at this. Dwelly. Yep, he's 200. Yeah. He's an interesting guy. I like AJ Brown. Okay. Tight ends. So, are you considering how Goff plays outside versus a dome? I am not. I am not considering how Goff plays out. It's a lot of people will. I know that it is something that people like to think about. I guess I haven't looked at the weather. That is actually, since you brought it up, I'm gonna take a look and see if there's any real weather concerns. Goff has been playing in Detroit for a number of years now, and I think he's started playing better outside. So it's not something that I, especially on a 1-game slate, that I'm particularly going to factor in. Well, let me take a look at the chilly and breezy. Winds will be around 10 to 15 miles per hour sustained, but gusts could still kick up to 30. I mean, I don't love that. Gusts up to 30 miles per hour sustained, 10 to 15. It's not quite the level where you really expect it to impact things. It's like over 15 is usually, which again does say that there could be some gusts. I don't think it's enough that I'm going to consider it on just a showdown slate where you can only choose from two teams anyway. But that's a good question. At tight end, Dallas Goedert is 5,600, projected for 34% flex ownership, 4% captain ownership. With those numbers, I'm getting to 22% flex and 2% at captain. I think Goddard seems like a strong play. I don't think that it's a predicted. Oh, it is this for Goddard. It is a really good matchup. It is the, let's see, sixth best matchup for tight ends against Detroit. Goddard, as far as like Goddard versus Montgomery, slight preference for Montgomery just because he has, he's involved in the passing game and the running game. But I think both are two of the better values in the mid range. I think Goddard is a fairly strong play, not like a huge priority for me. Again, if we look at the wide receiver coverage matchups for the Eagles, it's a positive for Goddard. So I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself into getting to more. It's a strong matchup in terms of the coverage. He's also done well against man coverage, and it is a strong matchup for tight end. So maybe I need to give more thought to getting to more Goddard. I'm not getting a lot in the Sims because he's projected for a fair amount of ownership, and it's sort of tough because there's so many good spend up options. But yeah, I think Goff looks like actually a fairly strong play. I don't know if it's enough that I'm going to push up his numbers to try to get to more than the 24% I'm getting to currently. Maybe just a little bit. Behind Goff, Calcaterra, Granson, kind of the classic backup tight ends. Calcaterra is 1,200, Granson 600. Looking at their usage over the past 2 weeks, Calcaterra has, hang on, I'll get there. One target on 13.8% route participation. Granson 0 targets on 10.3% route participation. Classic backup tight ends. I don't see any great reason to play either of them beyond just you hope for a catch or a touchdown and their low salary. And low ownership. Only 1% here going to Calcaterra. Let me compare that to RG. That seems kind of low. Yeah, they've met 3. Okay, so slight difference there. Fine plays, not priorities. Then the Detroit side, I think you can more prioritize the Detroit tight ends. Brock Wright is 1,600, projected for 34% flex ownership, 2% captain ownership. With those numbers, I only got to 12% flex and 0.4% captain. Man, 36% total ownership. Let me double check that also. Yeah, RG has him at 19% flex, which is really nice. That seems like fairly low ownership. So Brock Wright, depending on which ownership you use, looks like a great play or an over-owned value. But I like him quite a bit. If he's going to be 20% or under, I think Brock Wright looks like a great play at 1,600. Even at 34%, like I would probably force in a bit more here. It's a slate where we have a lot of stars that we need to get up to. So then you kind of do need some things from the cheap plays. Like you kind of need to get in some values and find what might look good. And I think Brock Wright with no Sam Laporta, again, Sam Laporta is on IR. I think Brock Wright looks like a strong play here. Should see more usage. We do have some coach speak on Brock Wright from Dan Campbell just this week. On the 14th, Dan Campbell said, on the trust Campbell has in Brock Wright, he said it's high, sky high. Brock's a guy we don't talk a lot about, but he's the jack of all trades, man. He does everything for us: pass protect, run block. He can run some routes. He plays special teams. He's one of the most dependable players we have on this team. He's versatile, smart, and tough. He checks a lot of boxes of a well-rounded tight end. Now, I will say, from a fantasy perspective, that is not actually the most bullish coach speak. It's like, yeah, we love the guy because he pass protects, run blocks, can run some routes and play special teams. Like, can run some routes is not like the most bullish thing you can say about a tight end. But I think at 1,600, he will be running routes, should see some opportunities. Let's take a look at the route share report. Kind of want to look at games that Laporta has missed, which he has not missed any games so far this season. Did he miss any games last season? I think I might need to look at this. But Brock Wright, 23% route participation in the last game, 31% the game before. So he's already running some routes more than Dwelly, who was at 11% in the last game. Let me look at 2024. See if I can find any games with Sam Laporta out. Okay, Laporta missed week 11, and Brock Wright ran 49% of routes in that game. So that's probably a good indication of what his role might be. Did he? I guess we can look at 2023 also. I thought there was a period where Sam Laporta missed more games, but maybe I'm misremembering. Nope, it doesn't look like he has recently. So week 11 of 2024. What it looked like for the Lions. Just one target on 49% route participation for Brock Wright. I mean, it is very possible that he again runs 50% of the routes and sees one target. Like I don't think they view him, and just the coach speak, as you can see, does not indicate that they view him the same as Sam Laporta. Like, oh yeah, he's a great pass catching. We can really stretch the field with Brock Wright. No, you don't get any of that in the coach speak. You get he's a jack of all trades, can block, and so it's not the most bullish. But at 1,600, a tight end running 50% of the routes is probably a reasonable expectation. I think you can get to some. I think Brock Wright is a fairly strong play, but again, I like him a lot better at 20% than 34%. So I'll probably get to 20 to 25% Brock Wright. I think that is fine. And then Ross Dwelly is 200, projected for 7% flex, and 0% captain. I only got to 3.4% of Dwelly. Let me think about Dwelly. So let's look at his. Give me 1 second here. Let me look at his stats. Maybe I need to look into Ross Dwelly more, because it's possible that like if they like him better as a pass catcher, has he ever been used? I mean, 22 and 24 targets back in 19 and 20. He's barely been targeted since then. So yeah, it doesn't seem like they're going to use Dwelly as a pass catching tight end. Has one total target in 7 games on the season. Probably just benefits the receivers. I think Dwelly is a totally good is a pretty good play at 200. I think that he's the one that I was talking about for a min price play. He's the one that kind of pops off. It's like, yeah, you can play Ross Dwelly and just hope that he catches one for a touchdown. Brock Wright, I think, is also like is targeted in the end zone some. So let's take a look at that. What are his end zone targets look like? So in terms of inside the 20 targets, 2 of them for Brock Wright, 1 end zone target on the season, which, for a guy who doesn't get targeted much, at least one of them was in the end zone. He caught it for a touchdown, so that's good always. Just 4% first read target share for Brock Wright. Ross Dwelly not targeted at all inside the 20 so far, has not been used as much. But again, I think we should likely see an uptick in both, for both in terms of usage. So I think Dwelly at 200 at 7% ownership, totally reasonable. I don't know that I'm going to have a ton more than the field there, but I think he's a fine value. And Brock Wright, similarly, I like him quite a bit, but 34% starts to look like bad chalk to me. Defenses and kickers. Let's see. BJH says Dwelly was okay filling in for Kittle a couple years ago. Yeah, that was my memory too, but I did not see any game where he was actually significantly used. Maybe I had to look at the actual game logs. All right. Sorry, defenses and kickers. Lions 3,600 projected for 10% flex ownership. Using that number, I got to 35% plus 4% of captain. That surprises me a little bit. Jake Elliott, 4,800 projected for 19% flex. I got to 17%. Eagles, 4,000 projected for 10% flex. I got to 14% and 0.4% of captain. Jake Bates, 4,600 projected for 22% flex ownership. I got to 3%. So I think we're basically just inversing the field to some extent. Like the Lions at 10%, you get a lot. Eagles, both defenses are projected for lower ownership. I'm actually surprised that I'm getting to so little of the Eagles, like the big disparity there. I don't have any super strong takes on the defenses. If you think that the cold will affect Jared Goff, maybe the Eagles defense at home looks pretty good at 4,000. I think that's an angle you could play. My instinct is to prefer Jake Elliott as my number one option of this group, just because I think the Eagles slightly more likely to kick it on fourth down in scoring position than Dan Campbell is. So Jake Elliott, I think, would be my top option, followed by Jake Bates, followed by probably I don't know. I guess the Lions, maybe the Eagles. It's pretty close between the Lions and the Eagles. Probably the Lions first, and then the Eagles, like it is here. But I don't have any great takes here, other than I want to even this out a bit. I think this is I don't feel that strongly that the Lions defense is this much better than Jake Bates, so I'll probably try to even those numbers out a bit. All right, I'm going to adjust some inputs. Actually, I'm going to refresh everything, make sure it's all up to date, and then I'll adjust some inputs and run the sims again. Take any questions. All right. So again, I think AJ Brown is going to be a big priority for me. So I am going to increase his target share due to the matchup. Now I say that, and that means that I probably need to get rid of some usage going somewhere else. I think I could take some target share away from Saquon Barkley potentially. So I'm already getting to a ton of Saquon Barkley, and give some of that to AJ Brown. I'm going to click this smart adjust button, move Saquon down to 11% market share, bring AJ Brown up to 27%. What else? Kind of want to get to more of Goddard. Maybe I'll run the sims one more time first. On the Lion side, I do like JMO captain in particular. I think I'm going to bring down his ownership a bit closer to where it is elsewhere. So I'm going to bring down to 24 and 2. And then who should I give more? I mean, I think Gibbs is going to get more ownership in this, so I'll bring him up to 30% and 12. I don't remember what the numbers were exactly. That's a lot of ownership going to Brock Wright. I'm going to bring that just down to no ownership going to Tesla. So that's the issue. So I'm going to bring Raymond down to 15, Wright down to 25, Tesla up to 12. Normalize everything. And then Jake Bates, that's a low project. I'm going to bring him up to 7.8. And I'll see what I get just using. Oh, but I kind of want to get to more of the other Eagles running backs also. So let's see. If I bring Saquon down to 58, Shipley up to 5. Yeah, I think I can do that. I'll start there, run the sim, see what comes out. So I'm going to use maximum number of line. No, not for Showdown. I'm going to use 12,500, 15,000 contest field, top heavy, 232. And run that. All right. Who wins this game and why is the Eagles by 14? I hope it's the Eagles. But let me see what I put in the expert survey. I'll go with whatever I said there. I hate trying to predict who's going to win the game, but I'm forced to do it. So since I've already predicted it, I said Philadelphia 30, Detroit 27. So I've got the Eagles winning by 3. There you go. Montgomery does seem like but you need more than Camp Montgomery. Wright, Tesla, or Dotson. Who has the best chance to get a touchdown tonight? Yeah, I think it's Wright, as Brandon says. Yep. Got 4 Eagles, 2 Lions with just Monty and Gibbs. No issue with that. I saw somebody celebrating Denver, I think. What happened in Denver? Last I saw, it was just very frustrating for me as somebody who drafted a ton of RJ Harvey in best ball. But I wasn't expecting him to have a good game here. It's a tough matchup with the Chiefs. Didn't seem all that likely he was going to have a huge game. Zay Flowers nearly scores, goes 3 for 78. Interesting. Oh, man. Michael says, had all the Josh Allen today. I never go with naked quarterback, so that's the only thing that hurt me today. I'm so angry at myself for not having more Josh Allen because I was going to be all in. Nobody was into it, and then the weather scared me off it somewhat, so I ended up not getting to nearly as much Josh Allen. I for a while I was planning on really prioritizing Josh Allen, and then the weather was like, maybe this game doesn't really have as much potential, and I'm obviously regretting that quite a bit. But good for you. Yes, Peyton does love to kill running backs. I had a ton of Javonte Williams last year. Actually, I had a ton of Javonte Williams, Angelo McLaughlin, and Otter Guestimate in best ball last year, which, man, that feels dumb now. I saw this and I was trying to figure out what you were saying about Shakira and her ass. And no, that's not what you're talking about at all. Talking about Khalil Shakir with Josh Allen. I also had Khalil Shakir in my Josh Allen lineups. All right, top lineup here after making some adjustments. Captain Devonta Smith with Dallas Goedert, Dave Montgomery, Lions defense, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jalen Hurts. Leaves 2,000 on the table. That surprises me that I got to a lineup right at the top, leaving a ton of salary on the table. Second lineup, Devonta Smith with A.J. Brown, Dave Montgomery, Jahan Dotson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jalen Hurts. Third lineup, A.J. Brown, Dave Montgomery, Devonta Smith, Jahan Dotson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jalen Hurts. Looking at my player exposures, starting with quarterback, getting to 48% Jalen Hurts, plus 12.5% at captain, 32% Jared Goff, 1% at captain. Generally fine with both of those. I wouldn't mind getting to, I don't think I need any more Jared Goff captain. I think I'm fine with those numbers. Running back, I'm getting to 47% Gibbs, 18% at captain. That's even after adjusting downward on some of Gibbs's numbers. Also getting to 39% Montgomery, plus 4% at captain, 29% Saquon, plus 1% at captain. I think I'd like a bit more Saquon captain. Only getting to 1% Bigsby, 0% Shipley. So those are things that I want to change. I want to get to more of the Philadelphia running backs. Wide receivers, I'm getting to all of the Amon-Ra St. Brown. Interesting. Getting to 40% plus 28% of captain. I'm going to have to get away from some of my Amon-Ra exposure, I think, to get to some of the other players I like. I'm getting to 35% Devonta Smith plus 13% of captain, just 29% AJ Brown plus 5% of captain. So again, I'm going to adjust things to get to more AJ Brown, getting to 21% and 7% of Jameson Williams, 28% and 0.4% of Jahan Dotson. I could stand to get to a lot less Jahan Dotson, getting to 3% Tesla, 3% Raymond. I think I like more there. 1% Darius Cooper and none of Xavier Gibson. Tight ends getting to 24 and 2 of Goddard, 9% Brock Wright, 7% of Dwelly, 10% Calcaterra. I'd rather move the Calcaterra exposure to Dwelly and Brock Wright a bit. And then defenses kickers getting to 44% of Lions defense plus 7% of captain. Gonna adjust off of some of that. 15% Bates, 19% Elliott, 15% Eagles. So I need to make some adjustments here. I'm going to try to do that and run the Sims before using any kind of filter. So I'm going to go back to the inputs. So the big thing is I can stand to get away from some of this Amon-Ra St. Brown exposure. So I am going to take away some of his usage, this 34% receiving market share, and spread it out to some of the other receivers that I want to get to. So I'm going to bring Amon-Ra down to 31% receiving market share, bring JMO up to 20, Khalif Raymond up to 9. Is that too much? That might be too much. And then Dwelly and Wright. Let's see. Going to bring Gibbs down to 11. Wright up to 11. Right. Dwelly up to 6. Normalize that. Let's see what's going on here. There we go. Okay. Lions defense. Going to bring the sack rate down to 10%. I think all that will get me a bit closer to where I want to be. On the Eagles side, I want more of the Bigsby and Shipley. Also, I was not getting to a ton of Saquon, so I can bring the rush rate up. But I actually want more of AJ Brown is kind of the biggest thing. So to do that, I'm not going to move the rush rate up. Let's see. I'm going to bring the points scored up to 26, the pace up to 58. Going to bring Devontae Smith down to 25%. Make sure this is working. 25% receiving market share, and AJ Brown up to 28%. And then I was getting to a lot of Calcaterra. I'm just going to bring Calcaterra down to 4. And I was getting to a ton of Jahan Dotson. I'm going to bring him down to 7. And then bring Shipley up to 3% receiving. And then I'll bring Hurts down to 24% rushing market share. And Bigsby up to 13%. There we go. We'll try that. That'll get us closer to where I want to be. All right. Catching up on chat. I got to scroll back a bit. Yeah, it was not my best week. I don't get to take a huge bath, but a loss for sure. Yeah, I loved Estime last year. Got talked into him. Gainwell did work out. I still only played like 2 or 3% Gainwell, which I was actually trying to get to more, but only ended up with, I put him in a hand-built lineup, and then otherwise I think I had 2%. Boo Bears. That was a tough loss. Dan Campbell took over last week, play calling duties. But yeah, he's continuing the play calling. So last week was like threw more to JMO. That's what we saw. Yeah, I did see Darnold 4 interceptions as of last time I looked. Who do you hate at captain go into advanced? Who do I hate at captain? Jared Goff. I think I hate Jared Goff at captain. Penix is going to miss some time. I missed that. AJ Brown smashes against man coverage. Don't know about single high. That's it's beyond my understanding of coverages. I could look it up, I guess. Double D and flex. It works out a lot lately. You really think the Browns are going to draft another quarterback this year in the first round after drafting 2 this year? You might be right. I mean, you probably are right. All right, diversifying payouts. I just kind of realized today as I was listening to the red zone or whatever, how many big name rookies they have this year on the Browns offensively, or at least big name to like those of us who play fantasy sports. Because you got 2 quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders. You've got 2 running backs in Quinshad Judkins and Dylan Sampson, Harold Fannin. Just like a never-ending list of maybe it just did end. Maybe it is an ending list, but that's 5 rookies that were viable in fantasy sports this year. All right, let's see. Top lineup: Jalen Hurts, captain with AJ Brown, David Montgomery, Devonta Smith, Grant Calcaterra, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Leaves 1,000 on the table. Second lineup: Devonta Smith, captain, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, Jahan Dotson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jalen Hurts. Third: Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Jahan Dotson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jake Elliott. I'm going to look at my player exposure to see if we're getting closer to where I want them to be. I'm getting to a fair amount of Jalen Hurts still, 55% plus 14% of captain. Goff, I'm getting to 34% plus just 0.4% of captain, so that looks good. Running backs, I'm getting to 41% Jahmyr Gibbs plus 10% of captain. That looks fine. 39% Barkley, just 3%. I'd like more Barkley captain still. 41% Montgomery plus 6% of captain looks fine. Still didn't get to any Will Shipley after I boosted some things for him. That's a bummer. 6% Tank Bigsby. So I'm going to have to run the Sims one more time. Wide receivers getting to 32% Amon-Ra plus 11 at captain, 36% Devonta Smith plus 17% at captain. I still need to adjust things to get to more AJ Brown, 32% AJ Brown plus 12% of captain. So we're getting there. I'm getting close to where I'd like to be. 24% plus JMO plus 21% of captain looks good to me. 6% Khalif Raymond, 20% Jahan Dotson. Still want to bring that down lower. 3% Isaac Tesla, 0.4% Darius Cooper. Tight ends, 33 plus 2 of Goddard. A lot of Goddard, interesting. 11% Brock Wright, wouldn't mind getting more there. 7% Dwelly, 6% Calcaterra. Getting close to where I'd like to be here. Defenses, kickers, I'm double digits everywhere. Still 35%. Still a ton of the Lions defense. All right, so I'm going to just download these lineups so I have something in here. Hang on, let me close. All right, going to download. Download this. the best news of the day is my eliminator team, at least as of the last time I looked, appears very, very likely to move on unless we get like a 40 burger from JMO tonight or something. Which that is like the only thing that I like care about these days is my one remaining eliminator because it is a wagon of a team. We're getting to the weeks where it could be big money. So that's all I'm really paying attention to right now. My eliminator on underdog. All right, now I'm going to get back to my inputs. So let's see. I brought down how much I was getting to of Almond Rock, got to a lot more GMO. Generally, this was looking closer to where I'd like it to be. Still was not getting much Brock Wright. Maybe if I bring down the Lion sack rate more, I'll get to more of the other cheap guys. I think that's how I'm going to play it. I'm going to bring the sack rate down to 9%. Oh, it's also just the ownership projection here. Bring up the ownership projection on Jahan Dotson to 12%. I don't remember what it's actually set at. And then I want more of Will Shipley. Now, how do I do this? Going to take 1% off of Jahan Dotson and give that to Shipley. I think I'm just going to get rid of Gibson also. Let's see. I like Saquon captain. I'm going to bring Hurts down to 21% and then give Shipley 6%, Bigsby 14%. Actually, I'm going to bring Hurts down to a 20% rushing market share. Barkley 60%. Okay. That'll get me closer, I think. And then maybe I'll have time to run a filter. I'm bullying them. I'm always bullying these sims. They don't tell me what to play. Yeah, I do not like the Dotson. I'm getting rid of the Dotson. Thank you for the reminder. Sean, yes, please do like the video and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Can you check how often Detroit runs 2 tight end sets in the red zone? Probably. I don't know. I don't know that I know how to do that. Let's see. If we go to offense. Broken down by play type and field position. Snaps report. This is not working. Yes, totally fine to play AJ Brown captain with Hurts in 4 lines. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it before the show is done, Sean, because I don't know exactly how I would do that. I think it's some sort of filtering, probably. I'm sure there's a way to do it by filtering. This is a desktop. No, it's just there. Now it did. Now it did load. I mean, I can see that this doesn't show me what I need though. It doesn't show me like how many two tight end sets. Just shows me the players, how often they're playing inside the 20. All right, we're almost done with this sim. Reminder, you can get 50% off your first payment on any Run the Sims NFL product by using promo code Neil. That's a big discount, new as of last week. So if you haven't already checked out Run the Sims, highly recommend it. Use that promo code, get 50% off your first payment. What are you guys doing? Are you gonna also play AJ Brown captain, or am I wish casting too much? Also, am I getting to AJ Brown captain? I hope so. Quarterbacks look good. Wide receivers, man, I'm still just 8% AJ Brown captain. I really want to, I'm trying to get to more. I'm gonna have to use a filter to try to get to more there. Getting a 21% JMO captain, 16%. I'm gonna cut down on some of that Devonta Smith. I'm actually, man, do I want to try to run this one more time? It was pretty quick last time. So I think I might just try real quick to get one more in here. I'm gonna bring AJ Brown all the way up to 29. Devonta Smith down to 24. Bring AJ Brown's captain ownership down to 8. And then let's see. Goddard up to 5. Oops. And JMO up to 3. All right, let's see if that's enough for me to start getting some more AJ Brown. Out of 20, you have 4 AJ Brown captain. I think that seems good. Yeah, it seems like a good lineup. Oz. Sean, I can't do this stuff while I'm running the Sims though. But I'm not trying to like, I'm playing a lot of lineups here, so I don't want to tell it that I'm not going to have any golf. Like, I'm getting to 0.4% right now. That seems fine with me. I don't need to. I'm already putting my thumb on the scales enough that like I don't like to set those hard and fast rules. Like if the Sims really like some Jared Goff captain lineup, even after I've boosted all the other players, and it's still like, but in this case, I actually like the Sims like a Jared Goff. Then I'm not going to. I don't like to set a lot of those kinds of rules. Is this a hedge, Aaron? You say you're fading AJ, but have him in prime time. All right. Getting there. I think we'll get these Sims done in time. Hopefully, it's not going to be anything insane because I'm probably not going to have time to adjust. Hopefully, you guys have your lineups in. We've got 3 more minutes. Make sure you get them in if you haven't already. If you're not already in the Flaniverse Discord, it's free to join. There's a link in the description of this video. How much Brock Wright? I'm still working on how much Brock Wright. I'm hoping to get to 20%, but I'm guessing I'm not going to. Is this going to be NFC Championship game? Probably. Seems pretty likely. Come on. There we go. All right. I'm going to go quarterback first. Looks good. Running backs. Only 5% Saquon captain. Would like more, but it is what it is at this point. Only up to 5% Will Shipley, 9% Bigsby. I don't know why. I just could not get to enough Will Shipley. Oh, well. Now I am getting to 15% AJ Brown captain plus 38% flex. So honestly, not even that far above the field, which kind of sucks. But at least I've got 2 above the field. I'm now 40% total Amon Ra. Still a ton of Devonta Smith. A lot of JMO. 4% Khalif Raymond, 2% Isaac Tesla. I now don't have any Jahan Dotson. So I don't know what, I didn't actually move his ownership all that different, but I took away some of his market share. I'm at 3% Darius Cooper, 29% Dallas Goedert plus 4 at captain, 13% Brock Wright, 9% Ross Dwelly, 12% Grant Calcaterra. So in a lot of ways, I did not get where I wanted to, but we got closer. So I am going to download these lineups and use them. And we'll get these in just in time. I will, of course, be back tomorrow in the afternoon with Adam. We'll break down Monday Night Football, and then I'll be doing it again prior to lock on my own after we get inactives. Tomorrow night should be a fun game. We got Cowboys playing tomorrow. Cowboys versus Brock Bowers and the Raiders. Always kind of fun there when the Cowboys play. You can expect a lot of points to be scored. All right. We got it done. That is too much. I didn't want that much Calcaterra. I was not able to get my lineup exactly where I wanted to. Yeah, please do like the video if you have not done so. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you're interested, join the free Discord. Use promo code Neil if you want to get 50% off your first payment at Run the Sims. I think that's it for this video. Hopefully, you guys won some money today, and if you didn't win some money today, hopefully you win some money tonight. Also, just let me know. I appreciate you. Sean sent $2 just cause. Good guy, Sean. Always appreciate you. If you do win some money and you think that I helped out, you can win a Flannelverse hat, or just because you want to support. Just let me know. I always love hearing from people if they do win some money. But you can win a Flannelverse hat by using the Flannelverse avatar, winning $1,000 or more. Give a social media shout out to myself. I'm at PlayerQDFS on Twitter or Mathology13, and then send me your mail-in address. I would gladly send you a Flannelverse hat. All right, thanks everybody. Good luck tonight, and I will be back tomorrow. See you then.